The third phase is perhaps the most significant, which is the nation-wrecking role that Irfan Habib played during the Ayodhya episode, and we look into these details later in this episode. The fourth stage in Irfan Habib's notorious career is his emergence as slightly better than a street thug. In 2019, Irfan Habib shared the stage with Kerala Governor Shri Arif Muhammad Khan, and he physically tried to prevent Arif Muhammad Khan from speaking at a public function in Kannur. How old is this guy Irfan Habib? Now he is about 90 or 91 years old. So 90 minus 4, he was 85, 86 years old when he pushed, tried to shove the Arif Muhammad. Right. Now let's break it down. Of all the eminent historians, Irfan Habib has been the most vocal propagandist of rewriting Indian history in order to force fit it into Karl Marx's insane theories. He has also been the most vicious and consistent denouncer of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, of Hindutva and Hindu Dharma overall. In one of his books or one of his articles, he has called Hindu nationalism as a disease. In 1988, when Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government took charge for the first time, the same Irfan Habib led an agitation with other gang members against Vajpayee's government, accusing it of saffronizing Indian history. Remember the term?
Yes, saffronizing.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see how these fellows invent these terms where none exist.
Like you said, the Marxist tactic of sticking a convict's badge,
Yeah.
and then their defense it permanently.
Okay. Saffronizing Indian history. Saffronizing as compared to what?
As compared to what exactly?
As compared to what? You see, real history is only Marxist propaganda. Everything else is either communal or unsecular or saffron. And next year, in 1999, Irfan Habib co-authored a communist pamphlet titled A World to Win, Essays on the Communist Manifesto. It leaves nothing to the imagination. Guess who was the other co-author?
Of this pamphlet?
Take a wild guess.
Romila Thapar?
No. Prakash Karat.
Prakash Karat. Oh, okay.
Okay. He also initiated an extremely ambitious multi-volume project of writing the comprehensive history of India. Its title, A People's History of India. When you read terms like People's History of India, People's War, anything with peoples, it is a shortcut for calling it a communist history of India. This is not a history of India in any sense of the term, but it is purely unvarnished Marxist propaganda disguised as history. So far, 36 volumes have come out. As horrible as that is, this you have to give it to them, because this is among the other strengths of how Marxists have built and sustained their ecosystem for such a prolonged period. From here, let's trace Irfan Habib's rise to power. He earned his spurs as a scholar of Mughal history or medieval Muslim history with the publication of his book titled The Agrarian System of Mughal India 1556 to 1707. This work was published in 1963. Okay. This is what catapulted him into fame as a scholar of Mughal history, like I said. In itself, I've read this book. In itself, the book is well researched. It is data rich. I mean, the primary sources, you don't have to go anywhere else searching for all the primary sources. That is its only utility. Like I said, the book is well researched. It is rich in data, etc. But what it does is its interpretations strictly follow the Marxist line, and its conclusions are completely mind-boggling to say the least. I'll come to these things in a bit.
Some instances.
But I must say that with this book, Irfan Habib attained the dubious distinction of single-handedly banishing Jadunath Sarkar's gold standard works of Mughal history.
So this fame that he acquired with this book managed to...
I'll tell you how that happened. Okay. Until this book came out, nobody, both in the academia and outside, nobody had dared to question Jadunath Sarkar's authority and eminence in this field. So, Habib was definitely very much aware that, questioning Jadunath Sarkar would lead him in, troubled waters. So what he did, like a true distortionist, Irfan Habib did not even bother to question or even mention Jadunath Sarkar's body of work. He simply pretended that Sarkar's work did not exist. And this is what another scholar, he's still in our midst, he lives in the United States. He's written a wonderful book on Jadunath Sarkar, Deepesh Chakrabarti. This is what he says about Irfan Habib's treatment of Jadunath Sarkar. Quote, more than his rejection of specific sources used by Jadunath Sarkar, it was the themes that Habib worked on that signaled the remarkable shift in historiography. Habib was avowedly Marxist. His very last footnote in the book is a reference to the selected works of Mao Zedong. He was secular in the Indian sense of the word. He sought the causes of Mughal decline in a revenue crisis of the empire. Remember?
The template that you mentioned earlier.
Irfan Habib wrote about the agrarian crisis that plagued the Mughal Empire and contributed to its destruction, but he did so without any reference to Sarkar's propositions, as if the volumes did not exist for Irfan Habib. It was a kind of a planned and a systematic suppression of real and genuine historical work that their predecessors had done. Alright? And now, after this, like I said, let's come to Irfan Habib's alleged interpretations in his agrarian system of Mughal India. I'll mention just two facts to simplify his whole thesis. One, anyone with basic knowledge of pure mathematics and applied statistics, okay, anyone with this basic knowledge knows that you cannot use it to derive hard conclusions in subjective fields like history, economics and sociology, right? But this is exactly what Habib has done and repeatedly done in his book on Mughal agrarian system. In layman's terms, what Irfan Habib does in the book is number crunching with respect to Mughal economics to somehow prove what is essentially his Marxist bias. For example, how this works, I'll give a example to illustrate how this works. For example, take the 16th or the 17th century India. Okay. Collect and flush out all the historical data related to price lists of essential commodities or even gold, silver, whatever. Okay. Make a list of the prices of all these commodities as available during that 16th or 17th century, and make this list, call out this price list for a few cities and towns for a few years. Okay, and then you extrapolate all these data and then apply it to an entire period of 300 years.
That's the formula.
What you get is utter rubbish, nonsense and dubious economic conclusions.
But what was the historian trying to do with economic conclusions?
I mean, agrarian revenue system.
I know, but as a subject matter itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's a valid field of study.
No, it is, but for a historian, I would think it is a strange choice, no?
I mean, these are economic histories which falls
Okay,
under the
from that
broader
standpoint,
purview of
okay. History itself.
Yeah. It's a slice of the overall
Larger ambit
subject
of
called
history.
And this is precisely what Irfan Habib has done. Alright? So, about 20 years back, one plate of poha in Indore would cost you something like 3 rupees or 5 rupees. Whereas one plate of poha in that same period in Bangalore, okay, would cost you not less than 20 rupees. There's a huge price difference. What this fellow has done is to cull out selective price lists of, say places like Indore for only that period, for say between 1995 to 2000. For Indore, Bulandshahr, Pune, some of these cities for 5-6 years, and then project its conclusions for the entire period related to price and economics for the entire 20th century. This is exactly what he has done for 3 centuries. This is ideology, not economics.
Absolutely.
Much less, it's not history at all. Alright? And of course, it is pure communist propaganda. And simplified versions of this sort of distortion were prescribed as lessons on Mughal history in school textbooks. Viola, what do you get? Every student grows up reading these lessons with the impression that the Mughal rule was extraordinary, it was prosperous, and the Mughals made India overflow with milk and honey.
Extremely clever. And obviously there was no
Even today that is the impression. No?
It is. Like you said, they got the children. Every episode reinforces that.
Right? But what was the economic reality of the Mughal rule? Take the case of Akbar the Great. Allegedly in his time, Mughal prosperity, Indian prosperity was highest. Okay? His own chroniclers, his own courtiers have written in graphic detail that each time Jahanpana Akbar travelled from one city to another, for hunting or wars or, just on a pleasure trip, his entourage would number in not less than 10,000.
Okay.
His begums, his concubines, then his whole staff, palanquin bearers, cooks, and Akbar would insist on using only Ganga water, Ganga Jal.
Akbar would insist on that.
Wherever he went, let's say his capital was Agra, let's say he was in Karachi. What a distance, in that time. So he had runners and water carriers who would go to either Prayagraj or Kashi and get fresh Ganga Jal or transport it all the way to Karachi. Look at the kind of expense and the sheer amount of wastage and extravagance. Why does this escape Habib?
Exactly.
Alright? What about Jahangir's decadence? He had separate departments for identifying the most exquisite animals, let's say for a hunting game. Just like the Spanish matadors, that game is there.
So he had departments for these?
Yeah, he had separate departments for this.
So none of these features.
And he was taught the art of preparing beer by a gentleman named Sir Thomas Roe, who was England's ambassador to Jahangir's empire. Thomas Roe taught him how to make beer, and this man began to order truckloads of beer. Cartloads of beer.
Understood, yeah. In spite of
This is also
crisis.
economics.
Yeah.
Yes. Shah Jahan, for example, all his magnificent monuments, allegedly magnificent, Taj Mahal, it took 22 years to build. Some 10 or 12 lakh workers were, a few lakhs at least, were involved in that. Their fingers were chopped off, so they could not construct another monument of equal beauty and splendor. That apart, the Bengal province which was under Mughal rule, the revenue extortion was so brutal that parents in Bengal would forcibly castrate their young sons and then sell them as slaves in lieu of paying taxes.
This is horrific.
There was a thriving slave economy in this man's Shah Jahan's rule.
This is horrific.
Yeah. And where would these eunuchs, the castrated boys, where would they be employed? They began to flood in Delhi, and they would be employed as doorkeepers and guards in Shah Jahan's Janana, his harem,
Oh,
to guard his begums. See? And the one of the most prosperous class, that a new prosperous class that emerged in Shah Jahan's time was dalals or brokers who bought and sold these poor boys, castrated boys.
terrible, terrible.
Why doesn't Irfan Habib
Mention any of this.
include or mention any of this? Okay, I can go on, but so this is a book that brought him fame, and pretty much another dark chapter of distortions of Indian history began. Old giants like Jadunath Sarkar, all these gentlemen were all completely banned. Anyway, now this is point one. Point two about the same book, Mughal agrarian system. It comes straight from the horse's mouth. Irfan Habib wrote an article, I think sometime in the 90s, for the communist mouthpiece called The Marxist. It was a magazine. And this article is titled Note Towards a Marxist Perception of Indian History. Alright? And this is what Irfan Habib writes in that article, addressing himself in the third person. Remember Sam Pitroda did something?
Yes. After he was called out.
Okay, quote. Irfan Habib's agrarian system of Mughal India quarried the rich documentary material available for the period in an effort to establish the main methods of surplus extraction and the main features of class structure. He concluded that the main exploiting class was the ruling nobility, that the zamindars stood forth as junior co-sharers, the peasantry was highly differentiated, with the village community as an instrument of sub-exploitation, and finally, that the caste system ensured the presence of a large population of landless labor. The surplus entered circulation in the form of commodities, and so the natural economy was confined to subsistence needs within the village. The pressure of revenue led to an agrarian crisis which generated peasant revolts. These last often came under zamindar leadership or assumed a religious garb. Such a picture was closer to Marx's Asiatic mode, with allowance made for commodity production and limited landed property, and the existence of class struggle in one form or another. Close quote. This is complete jargon gibberish.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, this is not even plain English. Loaded with, words and phraseology and sentence construction which only Marxists can understand. But above all, there is really nothing in all of Indian history to prove this outlandish and insane conclusion. The whole zamindari system and the zamindari exploitation was real, yes, but they didn't arise due to class revolt or class differences, which Irfan Habib says.
or Brahminical oppression.
The zamindari oppression as a phenomenon began due to British exploitation, East India Company. But that's a topic for another day. We can leave this at that. Okay, this is a reality, the true character of Irfan Habib's seminal work of historical distortion.